One of the biggest games of the week is on tonight. The Stars welcoming the Boston Bruins to town for their final meeting of the season. And on today's episode, I talk with Ian McLaren of Locked Bruins to get you set for everything you need to know about tonight's matchup and who we think might could come away with 2 big points. All of this coming up on a Tuesday episode of Locked On Stars.
Your Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans. Welcome back to the Locked On Stars podcast, the only daily podcast covering the Dallas Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Dane Lewis, your local expert on all things Dallas Stars hockey, coming to you on this Tuesday, February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day to all you lovebirds out there. And whether this is your first time here or you are a recurring listener, thank you for stopping by, making Locked On Stars your first listen of the day. Speaking of love, I would just absolutely love it if you would hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel or the follow button on your favorite podcasting platform. You can also leave us a 5-star rating or review if you like the show and like what you hear. We've got a great one on tap for you today. A big game tonight. The Bruins coming into town for a date with the Stars. And right now, we're going to jump into today's conversation that I got to have with Ian McLaren of Locked On Boston Bruins. So let's get into that crossover right now. Welcome in, everybody, to this special NHL crossover episode. A very big game this week here in Dallas on Tuesday night. The Stars welcoming in one of the best teams, if not the best team in the NHL, the Boston Bruins. And I'm joined now by Ian McLaren, host of Locked On Bruins, and we're here to talk about this game and get you caught up on everything you need to know about these two teams, because these two teams don't see each other very often, but that this is about as big as a regular season game can get. And Ian, we can just jump right into it. And I have to ask this about the Bruins. And I feel like this is maybe a question a lot of people will send your way this season, because the expectations for them were kind of all over the place. Some people thought, they'd be top 3 in the division. Some people thought they might miss out on the playoffs. But it's fair to say that they've gone above and beyond, I think, any expectations for them this season. Did you expect this at all? I mean, they've won the President's Trophy in the past with 2020, 2014, but I mean, they're on pace to shatter those point totals from that year and really any other previous President's Trophy winner that we've seen in the past few seasons.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that I expected them to be this good. I don't think anybody realistically would have thought that they'd be anywhere near an 800 team at this point in the season in terms of point percentage. There's a touch under that at the moment after losing 4 of their last 5. I kind of, thought probably similar to last year. They're maybe challenging for the top 3 in the Atlantic, with Florida maybe taking a step back. Tampa, Toronto, always going to be really strong. So I expected them, to be competitive, to maybe struggle early on with Charlie McAvoy and Brad Marchand on the shelf to begin the season, with respective recoveries from injury going on, or off-season surgery, I should say. But I thought they'd be – I didn't have any notion that they'd be outside of the playoff picture, especially with Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci back in the mix. But, again, to say that they would be this good – nobody really, if anybody had, say, put some action on FanDuel in terms of the Bruins being this good at this point, then you're laughing. But I don't think anybody really saw this coming.
Yeah, it's remarkable what they're doing this season, and a big part of it is obviously the goal scoring, but something that intrigues me about this team and just this matchup in Tuesday night's game is the goaltending, and it's excellent for both teams, but especially in Boston. Linus Ullmark kind of leading the way with that duo, a goals against average below 2 and a save percentage at .937. What's it been like watching him this season? And I mean, he's maybe the best starter in the NHL, or at least, in the top 3, I think many would say. And then Jeremy Swayman is one of the better backups and could probably be a starter on maybe half the teams in this league. So what's it been like watching that duo perform this season?
I mean, it's been amazing watching them compete individually and also seeing the bond that they have together as well. Everybody knows after they win, they come together and have this pretty great goalie hug that goes on there. So they have a very solid relationship. They push each other. But in terms of Linus Ullmark specifically, again, I thought that looking at his track record in Buffalo, he put up some pretty good numbers on pretty bad teams prior to jumping on with the Boston Bruins. Last year, got off to a bit of a slow start, and I talked a lot about how that seemed kind of natural. You know, you're moving to a new city, a new team, new locker room, new system, new everything. It takes time to get set up with a new team and to get comfortable. And we're seeing that comfort really come out this season. He seems relaxed. He is composed in net. He's making some huge saves, putting up, Tim Thomas-esque numbers for the Boston Bruins. And I mean, like the team as a whole, we're kind of seeing a bit of a slowing down, a bit of a healthy expected regression. But he remains as solid in net as anybody, and certainly is in the Vezina Trophy conversation, if not the favorite at the moment. And he's the guy I expect will start against the Stars after Jeremy Swayman played well the other day against the Capitals, but did get the loss. He got off to a bit of a slow start, had some injury issues early on, but he also has this unflappability that really helps the team and gives them some confidence to just go out and play their game and know that they're going to be well protected in the defensive zone. So, Jim Montgomery the other day said they are the best goalie tandem in the NHL, and it's hard to argue with that at the moment for sure.
Absolutely. It's hard to find many other duos being as efficient as they are. And I imagine a lot of hugs have been shared between them this season with how many wins the Bruins have racked up.
Yeah.
But shifting attention to the skater side of things, it's hard to talk about this Bruins season without it's weird to say kind of the coming on of David Pastrnak, because I feel like he's been a good player for a while, but it seems like he's really elevated his game this season. It's kind of been a trend across the league with a lot of these younger guys like, Tage Thompson, Pastrnak, Jason Robertson, kind of, fully becoming superstars, while we're seeing some older guys start to slowly fade out of the league, even though, guys like Ovechkin, Crosby still playing well. But we're starting to see this new generation of superstars. And I think David Pastrnak certainly fits that billing. I've seen him all over, the top 5 in the Hart Trophy voting, whether that's on FanDuel or, just about everyone has him in the list. One side of the question, what's it been like watching him this season take this step? And also, I'm sure this has been a hot topic of discussion on your show. When do you think the Bruins strike up a deal to get him re-signed? Because I imagine that they're going to want to hold on to him for a while.
Yeah, that's kind of the, let's say, $88 million question at the moment, is when they're going to get him signed. First of all, watching him evolve into an elite, I mean, not just elite. He's been elite. He's won a Richard Trophy in the past, but kind of that transcendent kind of superstar level he's hit this season. He's, in the running with Connor McDavid for the league leading goals. He's top 5 in points. It's been really great to see him come into his own, not just as the third member of the Bergeron-Marchand line, but he's been playing largely on the second line with David Krejci, Pavel Zacha, sometimes Taylor Hall. So he's really become not just, I don't want to say he was a passenger before, but he's really an offensive driver. And anytime he's on the ice, like an Ovechkin, who you mentioned before, once the puck's on his stick, truly anything can happen. And he has the benefit of having learned from some of these older guys on the team how to play two-way hockey. He's still prone to the odd bad pass or ill-advised shot that's blocked, goes the other way, overpassing perhaps at times to try to get other people involved. But just his evolution has put him in a position to become a very high paid player. And it's something that Bruins fans are clamoring for. They're waiting for. It seems as though, the Bruins have a track record of signing guys to probably lower than market value, or definitely lower than market value. Look at Pasternak's current contract, Brad Marchand's current contract. He rightly wants to get paid, and he's going to kind of break the mold in terms of how the Bruins do business. They're probably going to end up paying him more than they would have liked, but that's just the business of hockey these days. You have star players, superstar players. You have to pay them in order to keep them. They can't just let him walk in free agency. So I still think something will happen before the trade deadline so that they have a better idea of what they can do at the deadline and what kind of room they'll have next season. But every passing day that it doesn't happen is it kind of just fills you with a bit of, let's just get this going. Like, well, what's the holdup? He's obviously good. Just kind of pay the guy.
Certainly, and I think Stars fans can relate to some degree. There was that situation similar with Jason Robertson this offseason, so definitely some relatability there. And got a couple more questions for you. And you touched on his name a second ago, Jim Montgomery, his first season as head coach. At one point was the head coach of the Stars, and things came to an unfortunate ending here. But it seems that he's back on his feet and doing very, very well for himself. I mean, how have you seen this team? Has there been any adjustment or change with him at the helm as the coach? Has there been something you've noticed either culture-wise or, the way they play the game? Has there been any noticeable differences? Because this team is stayed relatively the same over the past few seasons with Bruce Cassidy as the coach. But have you seen any major changes with Montgomery at the helm?
Yeah, I mean, certainly there have been some differences. I've said this before, but many, if not all, Bruins fans disagreed with the decision to fire Bruce Cassidy in the first place. And it's really worked out. If anybody was well suited to step in and take over the squad, it's clearly Jim Montgomery. He's given the guys a bit of a looser vibe. There's less kind of, I think under Bruce Cassidy, there was, especially with the younger guys, kind of a fear of making mistakes, very short ropes when it came to that kind of thing. And there's just a bit of a looser vibe with the younger guys and a trust in the older guys that they can kind of guide the room. He didn't have to come in and reinvent the wheel, just kind of fine-tune some things. And one big noticeable difference in terms of style of play for the Bruins is getting the defensemen more involved in the offense. Jim Montgomery has pushed on that since day one. He likes his defensemen to pinch responsibly, to be involved offensively, to play with the puck, to create. And we've seen that really pay off. We saw that really early on with Hampus Lindholm. With Charlie McAvoy out, he, put himself on pace for a career year early on. And probably stylistically, that's one of the biggest contributions that Jim Montgomery's made for sure.
Yeah, it's obviously worked out very well for him, and a lot of new coaches and new places this year in the NHL, and a lot of them having some success and some of them not so much. But I think both the Bruins and Stars have been the beneficiary of some excellent coaching from guys in the position with those teams for the first year. But I'll go ahead and save my next question for a little bit later. I think it relates better to the game. But we're going to go ahead and take a quick break and say thank you to one of our sponsors today, and that is FanDuel Sportsbook. The midway point of the NBA season is here. Now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers can get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and even three-pointers drained. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at bigger payouts with a same-game parlay. So don't miss your chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook of the NBA.
All right, Dane, I think where I want to start is with an old friend of the Boston Bruins, a guy who's always got some eyes on him when the Bruins and Stars play, and that's Tyler Seguin. The Stars, they have this really impressive mix of veteran guys, younger superstars. This team was kind of built around Tyler Seguin. Jamie Benn had some success going to the final a few years ago, but those guys definitely aren't the drivers anymore, I guess. What would you say about the state of Tyler Seguin's game kind of at this point in his career?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because Tyler Seguin is a player in Dallas who is both beloved by the entire fan base, but also it can maybe face the most scrutiny because he has one of the biggest contracts in the NHL. And the past few seasons, I mean, he just either hasn't played. I mean, 2 seasons ago, he didn't really have time to recover after that Stanley Cup run in the bubble. Pretty much his whole lower body was just not working. I mean, his hip, his knees. I think he only played 2 games that follow-up season. And then, last year, I think he's still feeling some of the effects of the surgeries and recovery. So he certainly wasn't at his best. And this season started off a little bit slow, but he's picked things up a little bit over the past month and a half, 35 points in 54 games this season. But the interesting thing with Tyler Seguin is I think that he still has a lot to offer. The problem with the Stars this season has been finding the adequate players to put around him, because the top line for the Stars is, I mean, one of the best in the NHL with, Jason Robertson, Rope Hintz, Joe Pavelski. And then Tyler Seguin has really just had a carousel of teammates being slotted in at the wing positions, whether it's been Mason Marchment, who came over from the Florida Panthers in the offseason. Radek Faksa has come up on and off to play center and let Tyler Seguin go out to the wing. And so I think the Stars at the trade deadline, as it gets closer, they're going to be looking to add some sort of forward depth, a top 6 winger that can, play alongside Tyler Seguin and elevate his game a little bit while also, contributing some scoring outside of that Stars top line. Because it's really, a tough situation of Seguin still being, in his early 30s, still a lot left to offer, but just hasn't really had the right, placement on the team. Because there was a stretch right before the All-Star break where Rope Hintz was out, and so Seguin slotted into that top line center spot and had some of the best games of his season alongside Pavelski and Robertson. So I think that just goes to show that if he has the right talent around him, he still has plenty to offer and plenty that he can do night in and night out. It's just a matter of finding those guys.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that we're coming up on the 10-year anniversary of that trade.
Yes, that's crazy.
Speaking of stars, Jason Robertson, I mean, every time I look at his stat line, I'm just blown away by what this guy is able to do. I think he's got almost 70 points so far this season, up there in terms of overall production, goal scoring. I mean, I kind of think that he doesn't get enough attention or love that he should from the wider hockey community. Explain kind of where he came from, and do you think he's kind of overlooked or underappreciated kind of league wide?
Yeah, I think there is a little bit of that. And I think this season has certainly introduced him to a lot more people. I mean, making an all-star game appearance for the first time, being at one point, I think the leader in goals scored this season before Connor McDavid decided that no one was going to take that from him. I mean, it's an incredible story. I mean, a guy who was taken in one of the more loaded draft classes in recent Stars memory. I mean, he was taken, it was Miro Heiskanen and Jake Ottinger taken in round 1. And then Robertson was a second round pick in 2017. And I mean, just this kid from Southern California, just kind of coming out of nowhere a couple of seasons ago to be a Calder finalist alongside Kirill Kaprizov. And that was kind of a soft opening, I think. But I think everyone knew Kaprizov was going to win that award throughout the majority of the season. And then last year, I mean, he in his sophomore campaign, he scores 41 goals. And I feel like at that moment, definitely I feel like no one outside of Dallas was really talking about it, that, a kid who's 22 years old in his second year is scoring 40 goals. And so I can't imagine that he has too much of a chip on his shoulder for that reason. I mean, just seeing Jason Robertson interact with the media and interact with his team. He's a pretty easygoing guy, and I think he plays the way he does just because he simply loves the game. But it's been very, very impressive to see what he's done, especially given, I mean, I talked about his contract situation earlier. He missed the entirety of training camp because they didn't get a deal done for him until after preseason, after camp. And so it's insane that he's put up 33 goals and 36 assists without, really, I'm sure he was preparing to some degree, but not with the team. He wasn't getting those live reps in preseason games and practices, and he just comes in and picks up right where he left off from last season. And I'm excited to see what he can do once the postseason rolls around, because he was kind of kept quiet there, but it was his first run in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And so now with the year under his belt, I think, and just with the confidence he's gained this season, I think he can help be a huge reason why the Stars can go a few rounds deep, hopefully this season.
That 2017 draft, that's insane. Like 3 home runs with your first 3 picks there. That's a nice little bit of work. I was just looking at their draft history. You go back to 2014, and they had one guy who played 87 career games in Julius Honka from the whole draft class. And you get 3 guys in the top 40 who are, like, to win. I've always said, to win in the NHL, you need elite goaltending, the franchise defenseman, and then ideally franchise center or a franchise winger. Like, you look back at 2011 for the Bruins, they had Tim Thomas, Zdeno Chara, Patrice Bergeron, and the Stars were able to get that in like 3 picks over the course of a couple hours at the 2017 draft, which is pretty crazy. And again, going back, I think that's a big reason why I can see them going pretty far this season. They have those young superstar players. They have your Bands and Segans who've been around the block a little bit more, in a pretty wide open Western Conference, where I know, Locked On Stars probably skew a bit favor them, but it's hard to see anybody save for maybe a healthy Colorado Avalanche team stopping Dallas, especially if they can pick up a forward at the trade deadline. How optimistic are the Stars and Stars fans right now about this team's chances this year?
I think everyone feels pretty good at this point in time, and you hit the nail on the head with Colorado. That's really the only team that truly scares me in terms of, getting eliminated from the playoffs. I think a lot of other teams could make things difficult. I think the Winnipeg Jets have been a really good team this season. Connor, I mean, you win playoff games with good goaltending, and they have one of the best in the league. And even out in the Pacific Division, I mean, the Kings don't have the goaltending, but they can score a ton of goals. Edmonton has 2 of the best players on the planet. I mean, there's other obstacles in the way, but I mean, I think this is kind of, I don't want to say the year, because I think the Stars have put themselves in a good position to be competitive for the next handful of seasons with, Robert, you mentioned, you need the goalie, the defenseman, and the center or winger, and the Stars are fortunate enough to have both. Rope Hintz is, I mean, they just locked him up to an 8-year deal in the middle of this season. So, I mean, the pieces are there, and I mean, to give even more credit to the Stars front office and the drafting, I mean, they have guys like Wyatt Johnston, who came from junior hockey last season, dominated there, and he's got 13 goals. That's right. 13 goals this season. Not too bad. Logan Stankoven's probably going to be on the team next season. Maybe the next, best player at the World Juniors a while back that wasn't named Connor Bedard. So they've put themselves in a nice spot. And so I think Stars fans overall are feeling very optimistic with this season and next season as well. I mean, Joe Pavelski signed an extension for 1 more season this year. I don't think guys like him just decide to come back unless they think that there's a legitimate shot to, go deep and make a run at a cup, because he hasn't won one before. And you have to imagine, I mean, if he retired today, I don't think anyone would blame him, because he's played 17 seasons. He's given it his all. I think he's made his case to, for what is possibly a Hall of Fame type career, but he wants to stick around for at least 1 more season. So I think that speaks a lot into the state of this team and where they're at in terms of this season and how far they can go, but also, the next maybe 3 or 4 seasons. I think that this team can be very, very competitive and very good in the West.
Yeah, for sure. All right, before we wrap things up, talk a bit more about this huge game between the Bruins and the Stars on Tuesday. A quick word about our next partner, which is Athletic Greens. Now, with one delicious scoop of their product AG1, you can absorb 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. It's a special blend of ingredients that supports your gut health, your nervous system, immune system, energy, recovery, focus, aging, basically everything. Now, Athletic Greens was created when the founder experienced a ton of gut health issues and ended up on a complicated supplement routine to recover that cost him about $100 a day. He created Athletic Greens after experiencing how difficult it was to create an optimal nutrition routine on your own. You can reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition with just one scoop of Athletic Greens and a cup of water every day. There's no need for a million different pills and supplements. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1 year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL network. That's athleticgreens.com/NHL network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. And on behalf of Dane, myself, we want to thank you all for making Locked On Stars, Locked On Bruins part of your day every day. Both podcasts are free, available on your favorite podcast platform and on YouTube. So smash that subscribe button on both Locked On Stars, Locked On Bruins. Never miss a thing with regards to either of these two teams and any NHL team out there. You can grab a Locked On podcast, your favorite team every day around the NHL.
Yeah, and I mean, this is, like we said earlier, one of the more exciting games of the week. Two teams at the top of their respective conferences, and one I've been looking forward to for a while. We were talking about it before we recorded. These teams played back in like the first week of the season.
Yeah.
I personally don't remember a ton of what happened. I'm seeing here the final was 3-1. I think maybe that third
3-1
Bruins goal was
win.
an empty netter. So, I mean, it was a close game and seemed to be pretty competitive. And obviously now the Stars know that it's way easier said than done to go into TD Garden and pick up a win, especially in regulation. I think Seattle's the only team that's done it this season. And is that right? Is that still
Washington actually just did it on Sunday?
Okay.
Yeah, so they've lost two at home in regulation this season, which, I mean, still, that's pretty good.
At this point in the season, that's definitely not too bad. Only 8 regulation losses, 5 overtime losses for the Bruins, and things. I have some of the numbers pulled up here on NHL.com, especially on the special teams. Things look really interesting. Both teams are in the top 10 in both the categories, the power play and the kill, but both teams are top 3 in the penalty kill. The Bruins first and the Stars third. What's been the key to the success in your eyes for the Bruins on the penalty kill this season? And how important do you think special teams will be in a game like this?
Well, first of all, on the power play front, the Bruins have really been struggling there actually lately. They're like 0 for 17 over their last stretch. And I've talked about this a little bit early on this week. I think since January 1st, the penalty kill is ranked in the like 21st or 22nd. So that's taken a big hit, and that's partly due to Jake DeBrusk being out of the lineup since the Winter Classic. And it looks like he won't be ready for this game. He's going to play Thursday in Nashville instead. So that's a bonus for Dallas. The Bruins could really use him on their second unit. When it comes to the penalty kill, we talk about the 2010 NHL draft, Taylor versus Tyler. A little later down in the first round, Derek Forbort was selected, I believe, by the Kings. And he's become kind of a legendary figure on Bruins Twitter for his famous dog Darla, but also for his propensity to block shots and his heavy lifting on the penalty kill. He's been, if they had awards for penalty kill MVPs, he'd be up there for the Boston Bruins for sure. So he's been a beast out there for them. And when he was out of the lineup earlier this season, their penalty kill took a bit of a hit. So as long as he's in there and healthy, the Bruins have a good chance. Not to mention having Patrice Bergeron and Brad Marchand out there killing penalties as well. They're kind of a dynamic duo out there who often create some pretty good chances going the other way, even when down a man. So that's been key for them for sure on the penalty kill.
Yeah, no doubt. And the more I look at this and the more I hear you talk about that, I think this game is going to be low scoring. It's evenly matched on a lot of fronts. Both teams in the top 2 in goals against per games played. So, I mean, this is, to me, at least looks like it's going to be a game where the first goal is going to be pivotal because you mentioned you think Olmark's going to get the start for the Bruins. I think Ottinger's going to get the start for Dallas.
I was just going to ask that.
Yeah. I mean, one of the better goalie matchups we'll see on Tuesday night. And I think both of those guys they always come ready to play and their numbers reflect that. But I mean, this is, I think gonna be that game where the first team to strike, I think, builds a lot of momentum and probably a lot of hits and some physicality to go in as well. I'm sure, especially on Tyler Seguin's side of things, a few guys on that team that he still I'm sure keeps up with, and
definitely be some chirping at the very least for sure.
No doubt. And I mean, Tyler Seguin's always one to chirp anyway, but especially with the old squad in town for sure. But and I can give you a name as well after this, but wanted to ask earlier and thought it might be better now. We know all the big names on the Bruins. Who's an under the radar kind of guy that Stars fans maybe should be on the lookout for that they might not be as familiar with?
Let's see. And in a game like this, I'm going to pinpoint a younger guy, Trent Frederick, who has a pretty good ability to get under people's skin and to drop the gloves at times, but he's actually under Jim Montgomery, going back to what I was talking about earlier with Bruce Cassidy, kind of riding the young guys a bit hard. Trent Frederick is a guy who's really kind of blossomed under Jim Montgomery. He was a first-round pick a few years ago, not known as a scorer, but he does have a career high, 10 goals already this season, career high 19 points, but also not afraid at all to mix it up. So this is probably a game that is going to suit him well. And, it wouldn't surprise me if he ended up with a Gordie Howe hat trick in this one. So he's a guy to keep an eye on outside of the bigger names. What about from the Stars perspective? Who's a guy the Bruins fans should keep an eye out for?
Yeah, well, I touched on Wyatt Johnston a little bit ago, and I feel like I've said everything that needs to about him, just his arrival to the league from junior hockey. He's done really well, but I'll go ahead and talk about one of his line mates, and Ty Dellandrea, who 7 goals, 13 assists, not the flashiest numbers, but a guy who has taken huge steps in development this season, playing with Johnston and also Stars captain Jamie Benn, who has a tendency to drop the gloves as well. But Dellandrea's, was a guy who was kind of on the taxi squad a couple seasons ago. The Stars were just riddled with injuries and shortcomings on the roster because everyone was banged up from that cup run. And Dellandrea got called up and played some pretty substantial minutes and played in quite a few games and at a time where he probably shouldn't have been, but given the circumstances, he had to. And then last season, he spends the entirety of the year in the AHL. And now he's really come on as a very consistent, very solid, middle six NHL forward who, can score goals on occasion, set up his teammates well, but also kind of brings a little bit of edge and physicality. I don't think he's quite the enforcer type yet. I don't think he's afraid to get in a fight or drop gloves. But if there's someone making a hit along the boards with his line out there, it's either him or it's Jamie Benn. So I'll go ahead and say Ty Dellandrea number 10. But that line in general, they're typically the third line for the Stars. They've been pretty special to watch. Jamie Benn hasn't been phenomenal over the past few seasons, but he just crossed over into the 20 goal mark the other night for the first time in 3 or 4 seasons. So he's picking up his game a little bit, and a big part of it is the 2 young guys alongside him.
It's crazy to think that he won the Art Ross Trophy with like 86 points or something.
Yes.
Like what was happening in that era of hockey where someone could win the obviously pre-McDavid, pre-Matthews, insane.
But even
Anyways,
then, it was recent enough for, I mean,
yeah,
86
it
points
wasn't
today
even
would
that
be
long
like
ago. Yeah.
25th in the league, maybe. Like,
yeah, I know, insane.
yeah,
Like point per
unreal.
game guys are just like they're handing them out like candy these days. It's incredible.
Yeah, no doubt. But Ian, thanks for doing this. I'm excited for this game tonight, and who knows, maybe in a few months we'll be doing a crossover again for
Stanley Cup preview.
Exactly. I was gonna
let's pencil that in right now. Let's
we'll
on
both
my
reach out to
calendar.
our teams and make sure that they're on the same page, that they need to be playing in the finals for this to happen.
Yeah.
But
definitely.
Sounds like a plan to me. But thanks for doing this, Ian, and I'm sure we'll be talking again sometime soon.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot, Dane.